Hi, welcome back to School of Love, a place dedicated to revolutionize the family and parent-child relationship so we can talk about anything, especially sex. And today we want to go back to the very beginning, to the very first sex education that ever existed. I've been really curious, how did God really teach Adam and Eve about sexuality? How much could he teach? What are his regrets? And yeah, what would he like for us to do these days to do a better job? Because we all know that kind of wasn't the most successful sex education. So yeah, we go back in time today. I hope you enjoy this journey and yeah, have fun listening. Hello, welcome back everyone. I am here with our uncle Tyler Hendricks. So Tyler Hendricks, welcome to this podcast, School of Love.
Thank you, Amelia. Good to be here.
So Tyler Hendricks, he joined the movement then known as, I think, the Unification Movement in 1973, or what was it known back then?
It was the Creative Community Project.
Wow, okay, that's a new one for me. Okay, that's a nice name. Okay, Creative Community Project. He was blessed in marriage in 1982, has 5 children and 11 grandchildren. Way to go. He graduated UTS in 1978. He did a Vanderbilt PhD in 83. Ocean Church Carp, IOWC, was church leader, worked at headquarters, and was a UTS leader. And from then on has been teaching and researching. So that some of those terms I actually don't even know. But yeah, really awesome resume. Like, what's the Vanderbilt PhD, for example?
Oh, Vanderbilt University.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
That's a
Nashville.
town's name? Okay.
Also, my fellow graduates from Vanderbilt are Dr. Frank Kaufman and
Oh,
Dr. Thomas Walsh.
oh wow. Okay.
We 3 were there.
Very nice. Okay. Yeah. And I mean, I mainly know you as a theologian. Um, so the researching part that you've done since then. And today we wanted to talk about the first sex education that ever existed. Yeah, I really wanted to go back in time with you, back to Adam and Eve. Yeah, go back to how they understood from God about how to keep their sexual integrity and how they understood God's wish of them becoming the true parents of humanity. So yeah, first I thought we could first talk about what was God's relationship even like. I thought maybe we could just start with this hundoke that I found that talks a little bit about that. This is from Sun Myung Moon's Philosophy of Education back in 2002. So I'll just read it out.
Okay.
God could not educate his own children, Adam and Eve, in how to be good children. God could not educate them in how to be good brothers and sisters. That caused God sorrow. God also could not educate his children in how to make a good couple as husband and wife. He could not teach them how to love each other with his love as their central focus. God could not educate his children in how to be good parents. He failed to do all that. Were Adam and Eve God's children? Weren't they also brother and sister to each other? Weren't they also supposed to be a true husband and wife centering on God? Weren't they to be parents and have their own children later? But God could not give any kind of education to them at all. Because Adam and Eve failed to receive the right education from God, they could not complete the family of God's ideal of creation. So we must educate people to create families centering on true love. We must teach people how to be God's children, brothers and sisters, husbands and wives and parents. That is the way we can build families and eventually can't see the last part. Create, I guess, ideal families. So I read this quote, and then this was kind of half answering a question for me, which was, yeah, how did Adam and Eve receive their sexual education? And so this quote was saying that God couldn't really teach them. And so that's why I want to kind of talk with you about what was his relationship like with them? Like, how deeply could he communicate? Did it look like the relationship people mainly have today with God? Because, yeah, sometimes for some people it's clear and some people it's a bit vague. What would you say?
Okay, well, I understand from also Father's words that God spoke with Adam and Eve. In fact, after the fall took place, we see that God is looking for them. So we assume before, the fall took place, he was also around in the garden and speaking to them. But they were in the realm of indirect dominion. They had their 5% responsibility. So there was a limit to which God could, relate to them about this. And Father said, in one nice quote I found, that God gave the commandment first to Eve and then to Adam. Just one place Father said that. Anyway, it's clear from the Bible and from Father's words that both of them received the commandment. Father also said that they were supposed to learn from nature, looking at the animals and how they relate and how they make children. Should learn from nature. And, okay, I believe, and I think Father even indicates this when he was asked a question about it, that they were born of parents, of physical parents, who were primates, you'd say, or hominins is the technical term, that they looked like human beings, but they did not have, the eternal spirit. So they had hominins to relate to, a mother and father. Of course, they were to surpass the hominins in terms of their growth and their wisdom and their, character and everything. Hominins would just obey the natural law. But you would expect that the natural law, for animals there's a very special time when they have a sexual relationship, and the rest of the time they don't. It's turned off. It kind of turns off, turns on, especially when the female's period is there and then the males go. And then when it's over, it's over. But human beings are created so that it can happen all the time, which is a blessing for God wanted us to have. But they could at least see that sex is a special occasion, I guess, from their parents, or from the community that they were part of. I got a lot of this from Richard Lewis, who's done research about this, and it makes sense to me, and it aligns with words from Father also. And then there's the archangel. Now, the archangel was supposed to, and I believe they're male and female archangels, by the way. God made everything in God's image, male and female. So they were to teach Adam and Eve. And so that's the last. So there's their parents, their tribe, the world of nature around them, God's commandment as maybe simple or maybe a little obscure to them, maybe. And then there's the angels. It occurs to me that one thing that God would really, there's a great quote you shared from Peace Education, but there's another, it leads to this, that, the things started to go south. Father said that if Adam and Eve had stayed together, had, hung out together, there would have been no fall. But the problem was, one problem was that Adam was gone all the time. He's out there running around and not paying any attention to Eve. And so Eve was lonely. So based on that, I like to say, well, Adam, it is not just Eve's fault, Adam's fault first. He should have been there taking care of his sister. And Father said, if he had been there, Lucifer wouldn't have been able to, invade. But one thing I feel like God would be regretful about why didn't I take better care of Lucifer? God could not intervene with Adam and Eve because of the indirect dominion and their responsibility. But God could maybe pay a little more attention so that Lucifer didn't feel a lack of love. It says in the divine principle that Lucifer was very lonely, he felt a lack of love. And he said, well, why God is loving these little children so much, and why? And he's jealous of them. Why are they getting all of God's love? I used to be number one. How come now they're number one? They didn't do anything. And that God would have been within the principle to pull back and maybe take a little better care of Lucifer. That's just my reflection there. But I'm sure Heavenly Father and Heavenly Mother both were devastated by the fall. Okay, but this is not to discount the incredible calling that Adam and Eve had with no real, they were the first ones. They had to, accomplish what you read there. And they did have a serious portion of responsibility. Oh, and then finally, Father said, a mother too, that Adam and Eve should have clung to Heavenly Parent. They should have clung to Heavenly Parent. And that they didn't. They didn't have hyojung to Heavenly Parent. If they had, then they could have gone through that period. And they failed in that respect. Okay, that's my reflection on your question.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, I feel like, okay, so God could communicate with them.
Yeah.
And then, but yeah, maybe more communication was happening with the angels because, or I don't know if you would say that exactly.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. And this is another problem of Adam's failure. If Adam had been a, truly righteous young man, and Eve had been a truly righteous young woman, the angels would not have felt any lack of love because the angels were created to serve them. They'd been waiting for millions of years to serve and raise up God's children. And if Adam and Eve had been growing, they would have given lots of love to the angels. The angels would not have felt a lack of love. So in a way, Adam and Eve had to take over God's position to the angels at a certain point. They had to start loving, caring for Lucifer and there are 3 archangels, male, 3, I assume 3 female. And the angels would have been very happy. They would have been happy. Well, finally, because servants or teachers, nothing makes a teacher more happy than if their student does well. Then the teacher says, I fulfilled my responsibility. So that's.
Yeah. So I can imagine. So I'm just trying to picture it. God told them, please don't eat of the fruit. Don't have a sexual relationship. And there was nature laid out for them to show them what that is. And maybe they received more details from the angels. But then I feel, what a challenge, especially when, even though maybe Eve, like you said, received that commandment, when Lucifer himself was then, the one who maybe also was part of her sexual education, then took advantage, or I don't know exactly how it played out, but he must have taken advantage in some way. And I don't know, for me it feels like she was pretty much helpless. I mean, it must have taken a really, really strong person or personality in that situation to still, like you said, cling to God. And what God originally said to them. Yeah.
I think also, this is my own, I'll take responsibility for this, but I believe that Adam and Eve, and the centering on Eve, should have made clothes before the fall. When Eve started to mature physically, she should have realized something's going on here, and that I'm destined to be the conjugal partner of Adam, but not yet. And so if I'm walking around naked, it's going to be hard for Adam. I should cover myself, not out of shame, but out of modesty. I might
Hmm.
have sent you a title of a book called The Return to Modesty by,
Yeah.
yeah. It really is a very enlightening book to me. On the one, they cover themselves because of shame. Oh, clothes are because we have shame? Well, that's a wrong, wrong. I mean, we wear clothes for modesty's sake, especially, women should, and should put on clothes on Adam too. It's not time yet. Let's just set aside our physical relationship, whatever, and focus on Heavenly Parent. Focus on our the commandment that we received, and yeah, yeah. So I guess I'm sure that the hominins were naked, I would assume. So that was their first invention. I think Eve should have invented clothes before the fall.
Interesting. Yeah, interesting. I mean, it's kind of, they must have been in a really warm climate, right? Because when a baby is born, you naturally wrap up the baby also to make sure it doesn't
Yeah.
get a chill.
Right, right.
But yeah, it must have been a really warm place. I don't know.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. I asked
yeah.
Richard and another friend. I mean, I said, what is unique about human beings? And there's this and that. But I said, well, the unique thing about human beings is that we wear clothes.
True.
All other, all things, they're all fitted out. They've got fur, they've got claws, they've got everything they can for their environment. Not us.
Hmm.
We need to wear clothes for modesty's sake, but also just to, like you said, to stay warm and, uh, protect ourselves from the elements.
Yeah, interesting point. Although I was thinking some cultures less clothes than others,
Right.
but usually still there is the minimum still there,
Yeah.
as far as I know.
Yeah, unless on the Polynesia, I guess, and some, I don't know. Yeah, the tropics.
Right.
Yeah, but still, I think the minimum's there. I don't know. I haven't researched that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting.
Lucifer
So,
was
okay.
definitely attracted by Eve's beauty, feminine beauty. That was part of his fall, was that
Hmm.
she was beautiful, and then she starts responding to him. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, so I'm just wondering, so like this commandment was then pretty clear, but just maybe not really the support afterwards.
Mm.
I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm just wondering if like God had the typical talk like parents do from my generation. And then, yeah, did that talk continue as a conversation? Or yeah, was it the end and then they were just kind of expected to keep up the sexual integrity?
Yeah.
Yeah, because if it was just kind of this first understanding, then if it seems like, yeah, ideal sex education never really existed
Yeah.
yet. And yeah, we gotta invent it now.
Yeah, the Mosaic Law has a lot of laws about sex,
Mm.
which came, 2,400 years later, providentially, but a long time. And I think God, in Genesis 6:6, he wished he hadn't created human beings. Things were so wicked. And God just,
Mm.
and even I interpret the first few verses of Genesis 6 have always puzzled me. They're about the sons of God came into the daughters of men, and they were the great men of renown, something like that. And my interpretation is that these sons of God, that in the Old Testament, angels are referred to as sons of God. So I think these were evil angels who possessed men, and then
Okay. Mm.
took women as their conjugal partners, and God just could not countenance that, and it was all the flood, and signifies just the whole. It all got wiped out totally, and then started again.
I see. And with the Mosaic Law, because I don't really know much about it, was this more laws about sex, like after you are married, or basically to stay abstinent until you are married, or was there also some sort of sex education there already before marriage? Do you know anything about that?
Good question. It's mostly laws about what you should not do. Have sex with your wife's sister or your mother's, with all these sexual relationships, and with the punishment of death or expulsion from the community. But now that you mention it, I can't think of any laws that say you shall not have sex until you get married. But having said that, the Jewish tradition was parents arrange the marriage, and their offspring get married very young. Anyway, like true mother, I guess, 17. That's just expected. It just happens. It's not like up to the young person, oh, I want to get married now or not. It was just, you get married, and here's your spouse. And so in a way that reduces the time period where there's going to be difficulty dealing with sexual drives and temptations. And of course, they knew about prostitutes. I mean, they destroyed all the Canaanites because these were prostitution cults. And so I think that was a very serious mark of the chosen people. Also, I've read the study I've done of Korean tradition and Chinese as well, is that, there's other cultures that have extremely strict laws, traditions about marriage and about fidelity and no divorce and just one wife, one husband. That's a sign of a mark of a successful cultures, that they're able. I read somewhere, it was in a book by Pearl Buck about Korea. I've looked for it in the book anyway, that a man could be executed for looking at a woman in the wrong way.
Wow.
So,
who decides?
Yeah, that was like extreme, but that's what was there. Of course, she wasn't a historian, but that was it. And also in traditional Korea, again, it's my minimal research, but that in the villages, the women stayed, except for servants. Servant women could go out, but everybody else, all the women stayed inside the walls of the house, except for 2 hours in the afternoon. And then the women would go out, all the men had to go inside the walls, and the women could go out and shop and socialize and do their activities outside. So I think they really tried. They knew about the fall. I mean, they knew, intuitively that we should be pure and avoid temptation. Look at Muslim clothes too, and Korean clothes. The women are very much covered, by robes, and it's not like America today.
Yeah, it just kind of shows there was some. I mean, I think it's kind of extreme modesty, but it does kind of originate back to that original incident, the beginning of history. Yeah.
Yeah, it's you might say it's kind of oppressive, but there's an interesting study by a man named J.D. Unwin about 100 years ago. He did this research, and he studied 86 cultures. I mean, he's an Oxford scholar. I mean, those Brits are amazing for their history. And he found that, I kind of lost my train of thought, but that cultures that in a sense is like repressive of women. You don't go out, you wear clothes, you stay behind the walls, you like that, but when cultures that had that, and he found this true for all these cultures, maintain that standard, while they were maintaining that standard, they prospered and they flowered. Then when they got to like this point of flowering, then the kind of, oh, gee, we're repressing the women too much. They should have more freedom. We should let them, have more freedom. And he said, within 1 to 2 generations, it's over. They collapse. Because then, what happens when you give women that kind of, liberty, let's say? The men take advantage of it. And they'll seduce, they'll go after them. And then there'll be prostitutes and women, the whole thing falls apart. He found, within 1 or 2 generations, it's over. The culture collapses. It's very interesting. It's called Sex and Culture. That's another book you could look at. J.D. Unwin, Unwin, Sex and Culture. Steve Stacy informed me about it.
Okay, yeah. Sounds like interesting book to read. But how else to do it? As a woman, we don't want to be repressed the whole time. And what would be a better way? I don't know.
Well, I think that's the point of the Women's Federation. The women unite to be strong, to keep the men under control. Yeah. Women, I believe the force of beauty, Divine Principle says the force of love and force of beauty. There's 2 forces. And the force of love is associated with men, force of beauty with women. I believe that force of beauty is stronger than the force of love because it's like magnetism. So women have to realize that they possess this force of beauty that men cannot resist. It's very hard for men to resist. And so Women's Federation is, Mother said, you women, women are responsible to keep our husbands moral, raise up moral families. That's where it starts. And it's hard for me to say something like that to the Women's Federation leaders. But I think, Father, Women's Federation, he says, starts at home. It begins in your home. And I always felt, since 92 when it started, Women's Federation, that's my wife. My wife is Women's Federation. And he said in the home and in the community. And then beyond that, it goes to the nation and the world. I really feel like if all the women, this is my dream, my fantasy kind of crazy lunch conversation, all the women of the world unite together and say, we're going to get married to whoever our parents choose. That's it. That would really change the world. But it's hard to get all women to unite with that. That would really put a damper on male chauvinism, or I don't know what you call it, male lust, and it will help male. This is high noon, right? What if we say, oh, how to overcome pornography? Well, how about we overcome pornography by making pornography illegal and putting people in jail who produce pornography? I think, if we can, yesterday I saw a pack of cigarettes. I don't know, it was laying somewhere on the beach or something. And it said, because this is the law, it said on it, I should have taken a picture, tobacco kills, in big letters, tobacco kills. If we can do that with tobacco, sexual fall kills 1 billion times more than tobacco. We should enforce sexual morality, and pornography should be outlawed. There's a famous.
It's a good thought,
when it came up to the U.S. Supreme Court, and this is maybe 50, 60, 70 years ago, one of the justices said, well, I can't define pornography, but I know it when I see it. That's a joke. Anyway, it's true. Okay. Anyway, outlaw it. And just severe punishment for that. That's one way to overcome pornography if it ain't there, And women will not do it at the cost of their lives, and the pimps and so forth are put in jail. And go back to the Old Testament, they're killed. Okay, maybe that's too much. But. Okay,
That's too
I didn't say
much.
that.
Yeah.
I don't support killing. They get high noon education. How about that? There we go.
There we
Something more
go. That's
healthy.
nice. Yeah. No, but I like that idea, like before every kind of pornography clip to have a warning, pornography ruins
Yeah.
your sex life. Something like that. That sounds pretty legit and a good
Mm.
warning to have. Yeah, I mean, but I think it's actually one thing. So yeah, we've come to such extreme times, right, where pornography is so accessible and young kids are
Yeah.
confronted with it, which is a terrible thing. But on the other hand, I feel like it's now pushing parents and families to this tipping point of we
Yeah.
have to talk about it. I don't know if, yeah, how early God told Adam and Eve about sexuality, because I know True Father said originally kids learn
Mm.
from nature, right, and
Mm.
naturally should understand. But now, if we don't talk about it in the family, then we won't have time to learn from nature. We'll learn
Right.
from peers and
Yeah.
from pornography. And so we have to
Yeah.
address it in the family. But yeah, the good side of that is I feel like when we have this communication in the families and we show how, yeah, it's such a valuable gift and blessing when it's really used within
Mm.
a radiant blessing, then we can avoid all these problems, like you
Mm.
said, prostitution or yeah, people voluntarily making pornography. Of course, yeah, we're starting kind of now within our movement, and hopefully this can spread. But I think that's the amazing potential of families
Yeah.
today. Like
Yeah.
the loving way to do it, is
Yeah.
through this parenthood, making this relationship with children, rather than saying, like making all these things. Of course, yeah, maybe it's good to make it forbidden, but yeah, like a real loving way is just
Yeah.
through new education
Yeah.
within the
Yeah.
family.
Well, Father said that parents should be inspiration to the children. My mom and dad love each other so much. I want a husband just like my dad. I want a wife just like my mom. So when children see the love their parents have, that that's what they want to have. And yeah, Father's a good quote from Father. Maybe I can, where he says, here, I'll read some quotes from Father. Okay. After they have
Okay.
returned home, religion and all its customs will be unnecessary. After we've established true families, religion will be unnecessary. Tearfully embracing your mother and father and loving them and yearning for them will be the best Sunday service of all and the completion of everything God desires. In the future, family law should be enacted. I've already issued instructions for the fundamental rules to be drawn up. If the nation is established after I have passed on to the spirit world, my absence would not matter so much, because you would already have the laws set out on how to constitute that nation. If the unity of 3 generations, grandparents, parents, and children, is as strong as an iron fortress, and if they serve God as their core, they will be the one seed through which the kingdom of heaven can be realized. And here's from Mother of Peace. My sweet child, shall we go to church? That's Damonim's words. And Mother said, when I heard those words, I would run to my mother. She would take my hand in hers, and we would walk to church. I think the long walk with my mother was why I liked going to church.
Yeah, so sweet. I remember reading that.
So this is but see, as you know well, of course, the purpose of High Noon and School of Love is to help families become schools of love, and parents need help, and so the Catholic sacrament of penance, the priest is in the position of a father, a spiritual father, and everybody, the faithful child, no matter what their age, goes into the booth and confesses what they've done. And the priest gives some indemnity condition. And then they fulfill it, and then they come back and report to the priest, and then they can get the communion. So I think that's a model for what should happen in every family. The parents are in the position of priests. And the children should be able to share everything with their parents, with mom alone, dad alone, or together. And the parents give guidance. And that doesn't happen so just automatically. I think the purpose of the community that meets every week is to create an environment where parents and children talk to each other during the time of worship. So we sit together as families with our children, and children with their parents. And there's an atmosphere created, Hunduke words, and parents and children, all at the same time, scattered around the room, are going to listen to their children. The children are going to share. Parents are going to share, and maybe 10, 15 minutes. Because how often do we really share with our children? Much. You sort of have to, anyway, sometimes it's kind of artificial. For me, anyway, you're kind of, it's kind of, not natural or something like that. I didn't do a very good job with this, honestly. God bless my children, but my wife did much more for them, I'm sure. Anyway, that by doing it in church every week or every other week, I think it alternates. 1 week it's parents and children talking, and 1 week it's husband and wife talking, with the children there. The whole purpose of the community meeting is to generate family give and take within the family. Our teaching is God speaks through our parents. I mean, that's the ideal. Not someone up in a pulpit giving a sermon with a PowerPoint and stuff, but through our parents and through our children, to us. And then when we can kind of create that comfort zone on Sunday.
Yeah, nice idea.
That's my... Yeah.
Now I know what to do in our community for each Sunday. My husband and I are pastors.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, sometimes we're a bit stumped. But that's a nice idea.
We did it once in Kingston. We had a church plant with Abdu Gai, actually, who's now in Senegal. And we did the husband-wife talking. And I thought it was really good. And everybody talked, shared, couple by couple. And the children, some of them, handed out holy wine. And parents, took the holy wine again. We just did it one time. But I have some photos. Someone was there taking photos that were really nice to see the couple with their heads bowed and holding hands and talking to each other. It was really nice.
Yeah, I think that's also so important for the kids to see. I mean, hopefully it happens at home, but if it doesn't, then yeah, it's important to give that space and support. Yeah, somewhere. So if the community can be that place, that's really great. Yeah, so kind of, going back in time, this, sex education, and also referring to this quote that True Father said that I read, then versus now, I actually think we are better equipped because we do have some sort of example to live for our children, right? Because back then, Adam and Eve, that's really what was lacking. And maybe that was also kind of what True Father was talking about, was that like God's sorrow, that like God couldn't completely teach them. And maybe it was because there was this lack of a physical model in their lives,
Yeah. Right.
But now we are here, and our children can learn from us. That's an amazing thing. I know it's not easy and hard to be. I mean, of course, I don't want to say we have to be perfect or anything, definitely not, because I think we should always keep learning and stuff. But yeah, just to have that open communication and try to learn together as a family, like you said. Yeah, we do have an advantage now.
Yeah, I think God has indirect dominion, but the parents have direct dominion. Of course, there's still that 5%. Each child has to go to the 0 point, has to really go through the breakthrough, but it's much more natural when the family's united like that, when the parents are, families are united, and the atmosphere is good. Also, I hope, do you guys do in Germany? Do you do the Ilshim ceremony?
Yeah, we have the. I mean, I don't think people call it Ilshim.
Oh,
It's, or do they? I don't have a child that age yet, so I'm not completely familiar. But we have the purity ring,
yeah.
yeah, which the child can then receive. And yeah, I need to learn more about it, but yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that was Kathy Winings and Brian Sabrin actually came up with that, or they deciphered it, or they grabbed it from something, from Father's, some ceremonies that Father did, and said, we really need this. Every religion has a coming of age ceremony, confirmation, or and we need that, and whatever it's called, but education, counseling, and commitment, and the ring, and that set that ideal forth for our young people when they 10, 11, or 11, 10, 11, 12, 13, whenever, like that, around that time. Sex education. Oh yeah, I was going to tell you, the other day I was at a community supper, and this community supper is a local church here that once a month all the kind of homeless people can come, and they give dinner for everyone. And there was one very interesting man. He lived in a shelter, but he was kind of a brilliant guy, anyway, and with a lot of scientific awareness and knowledge. I bring it up because he's just talking to me, talking. He likes to talk. With his niece, he taught her when she was still, as she was approaching puberty, about how the woman's system works, that with the womb and the men, and how amazing it is, what an amazing thing you have going on in your body, and it's going to come, sometime, maybe then, it's going to come for you. So he said, when she had her first period, she was so happy because she had that kind of, understanding. And I thought, wow, that's cool. It's not
That's
just like,
cool.
what's going on? Oh, why am I, like that? But,
Yeah.
God made my body like this so I can have children, and how special it is, and like that. Yeah, that was just a random conversation with this homeless man. Very interesting.
Yeah. That's the kind of revolution we need,
Yeah.
to just really be excited about all these things. I think we've either been clueless or just very unprepared generally about anything to do, about the body and sexual relationships.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
it should come from the parents. Yeah. Filial piety is very special. I'll read a little. If in the beginning God would insist on Eve being with two or more, not Eve and the archangel alone, or Eve and Adam alone, then they could not have fallen. He said, if God had insisted that. Okay.
It had insisted what? I didn't understand.
He insists, if in the beginning God would have insisted on Eve being with two or more, not Eve.
Two or more.
Two
or more what?
Well, people, angels. That.
Oh, okay, just the support.
Yeah, Eve being
Okay.
with two or more, not even the archangel alone, or even Adam alone, then they could not have fallen. So now, from
Mm.
now on, I'm thinking that two persons should follow the eldest child who is entering adolescence. In this sinful world, for me to set up this kind of standard is a tremendous job, a most difficult job. That is why God and I and everybody else in this movement need a nation. If we can lay the foundation or set up a nation of our own, there will be no such anxiety. If you don't let your children set up their faith between middle school and the second year of high school, they will slide into the fallen society. This is based upon statistics from our church. It's a very serious problem. Yeah. No, really? We have statistics? Father said. I don't know if,
Wow.
yeah.
Back then, what year was that?
It was probably in the 70s, early 70s, maybe. I'd have to check
Hmm.
my the my my text. Yeah, but it's when, I'm sure, when the true children were starting to enter that period of time and fathers realized.
Hmm.
And this is something that made father and mother, more than father, really suffer because they could not be there for their children. And this is something that is really on mother's heart. And so she says, and I can maybe end with this here. Where is it? Okay, this is father's words. Who are your children's best friends? Not young guys from the neighboring village. Their best friends are none other than their parents. Parents should educate their children so that if they are asked, hey, do you think we should do that? They would reply, no, it would make my parents unhappy. Thus, parents ought to be their children's best friends and teachers. Okay, then this is mother's words. They should do it after having hundoke with their children. Your grandfather, meaning true father, liked to have meetings. But grandmother, true mother, thinks that each family must be strong by first educating the second generation.
Okay, now we know where Hundoke came from.
Well, right. And then she says, also, she ends up saying, the true children have responsibilities. They are responsible to become people who can receive true parents' blessings in the end. Unlike in the past, I will raise them myself. I will establish my grandchildren, directly guide and teach them to be central figures. I must remain in good health until these grandchildren I am teaching and raising become 40 years old. I will give them time to grow into perfected, mature men and women, as well as to build mature families. I will also ensure that they have many diverse experiences, increasing effectiveness. Okay, so I think she's talking about Shincheonnim, Shinhungnim, their families. We missed the second generation. Levi Doherty says so nice. Actually, you, Amelia, you're the first generation. I mean, you're the first generation of children born from the blessing. So.
Okay, wow, it's going to be confusing math-wise.
Okay.
But yeah, I see what you mean. Yeah, what you said with the quote from, I think it was True Father, you said, if Adam and Adam and Eve, or Eve and Lucifer had not been alone, if there were maybe more angels with them at the time or something, then they wouldn't have made this mistake. And it just made me think also of this interview that was recorded from the author of Good Pictures, Bad Pictures, from Kirsten Jensen. Yeah, like her point was, why should kids learn from their parents about anything to do with sexuality? And also, about risks such as pornography and so on. And it's because they're the ones that are present. We live in the same house and hopefully are spending time together. And I think we're really meant to be loving coaches for our children. And that's also what was missing back then for Adam and Eve. And till now, maybe also, unfortunately, there's just been so much shame on the topic that so many, I guess, just haven't felt comfortable or have felt kind of clueless about when and how to start the conversation. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's why we're here, is to
Yeah.
really start that
High
conversation.
Noon School of Love is really good.
It's meant to be the parents talking about sexuality just because they're
Yeah.
present and we're living in the same house.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I've heard other people, yeah, even my age, maybe they didn't receive so much education from their parents, but at workshops, right? They were really inspired from workshops, which is good and better than
Oh,
nothing.
that book by that I call Hold On to Your Kids. It talks about the attachment theory that children, these are secular psychologists, family counselor psychologists. The children have an inborn desire to attach to their parents, like instinctive to attach to their parents, and parents have to welcome that and have to let their children attach to them. And he even said in one quote I have, parents should create even rites and rituals in their own home that bring together them with their children. So that would be like hundoke. And father said, and mother said, you don't need long hundoke. And then you give them a little candy, after, you give them a little, make it a happy occasion. But
Yeah.
also, I know my tradition, my family, we just read. We read and we read and we read. We handed around the book, we read, and no discussion. And I'm so regretful about that. There has to be discussion.
Yeah. Yeah, it's actually then much more interesting to hear the different perspectives. Yeah, I really like this idea I read in this book from Myrna Lepre about family night.
Yeah,
Just this idea of once a week,
yeah.
kind of like instead of just date night as a couple, it's like date night for the family. And she even has a sort of, just a few points that you can go through on the family night. Like, just share shortly how was your week, and then go through your future schedule plans, because that's also good to do as a family, all these logistics. And then have a short sort of topic. Could be hundoke, it could be some sort of discussion, and then to end with something fun. Yeah. We tried this finally for the first time. It really has to be prioritized because I know it's
Yeah.
really not easy just to find even 1 hour where everyone is present. But we just managed last Sunday to do something like this.
Wow, great.
It was nice. I mean, it's not exactly as I imagined, but yeah, it was a good start. And then we all went to the cinema for the first time all together as a family. Yeah, that was really nice.
Yeah, the Mormons set
Yeah.
that up years ago. The family home evening, they call it.
Oh,
And
okay.
once a week.
Yeah, smart thing to do.
But it's still, I guess, finally, sex is something that each person is going to discover as a couple, by them. You can't just describe it all to them in advance. I think it's something they discover. And this is also a Korean tradition. I read Christian missionary testimonies and memoirs that after the wedding, they would the couple would go to the bedroom, and in Korea they had these sort of paper walls, like in Japan too, and they would wet their fingers and poke a little hole in the wall to watch them.
Oh gosh. Make sure everything's okay.
Whatever, I don't
Yeah.
know, it just stopped there. They would watch, and of course, and during traditional Jewish weddings, in the middle of this wedding, after the ceremony, then there's a kind of a party. The couple goes upstairs or goes to another place and consummates their marriage, and then comes back.
And continue partying?
Yeah, I guess so. I assume so. Maybe they can't take too long. Everyone can ask, "Oh, how was it?" I don't know. Anyway, something to research more about. But we have the 3-day ceremony, which is very sacramental. Okay.
Wow. So much to learn. Yeah, but thank you so much for sharing all of your wisdom and knowledge today. I was really grateful, and yeah, it was really nice to go back in time and just kind of clear things up, because I've been really curious about that time. Yeah, and
Yeah.
yeah, it was nice to hear from you.
Thank you, Amelia. You're a good interviewer. And and I'm really, are you in charge of School of Love or what, or in Europe or something?
Yeah,
What's going on?
yeah, I'm in charge. I have a boss and a boss or two, and
The Wolfenbergers
the
or
Wolfenbergers and Andrew Love is who I
oh,
meet up with most. But yeah,
okay.
for now I'm alone. Let's
Okay.
see how big we can get this to get more people on board. But yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, I think High Noon School of Love should take over everything.
take over the world.
Take over the world, yeah. It's the original. It's the way the world's supposed to be. So we start with our movement,
Yeah, one step at a time.
one step at a time, one family at a time. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, thank you so
Yeah,
much.
thank you. And yeah, I'll get back to you if I have more questions. Thank you so much for listening to this podcast. If you're enjoying any of the content from School of Love, please share it with others, especially parents. And this August, we're going to be starting a boot camp. This is especially for parents who maybe feel stuck in talking about sexuality with their kids. And I want to be there to support you. And we're going to really spend the time to hone in on this topic. How can we really be successful and have these great conversations from now and ever on into the future? So contact me at amelia@schooloflove.org if this is interesting for you. But do it soon, because the spots are limited.